Tensions are boiling over in one of the world's most contested waters, and the stakes have never been higher. The South China Sea has become a flashpoint for power struggles, and the latest confrontation between the US Navy and Chinese ships has taken things to a whole new level. How did this dangerous encounter unfold? And what are the potential consequences for global stability? Join us as we dive into the shocking details of what went down when the US Navy confronted Chinese ships in the South China Sea. The South China Sea, an arm of the Western Pacific Ocean, holds immense geographical, ecological, and geopolitical significance. Covering approximately 1,423,000 square miles, the sea stretches across a vast area bordered by several Southeast Asian countries. To the northeast, the Taiwan Strait links it to the East China Sea, while its eastern edges are formed by Taiwan and the Philippines. Borneo and the Malay Peninsula mark its southern and southeastern boundaries, with the Asian mainland enclosing its western and northern edges. Together with the East China Sea, it forms the larger China Sea, a vital marine corridor for trade and natural resources. One of the defining aspects of the South China Sea is its deep rhombus-shaped basin, located in the eastern part of the sea. The basin, known as the China Sea Basin, has a maximum depth of about 16,457 feet, making it one of the deeper sections of the world's oceans. This abyssal plain sits at a mean depth of 14,100 feet, housing rich marine ecosystems that have thrived over millennia. On the basin's eastern edge, the continental shelf drops off steeply near the Philippine islands of Luzon and Palawan, forming the Palawan Trough, a significant geographical feature. The western and northwestern sides of the basin, closer to the Asian mainland, feature a broad continental shelf that stretches as wide as 150 miles. This continental shelf includes vital regions like the Taiwan Strait, the Gulf of Tonkin, and large islands such as Hainan and Taiwan. Further south, the continental shelf narrows near the coast of Vietnam, eventually merging with the Sunda Shelf, one of the world's largest continental shelves. The Sunda Shelf covers an expansive area connecting Borneo, Sumatra, the Malay Peninsula, the Gulf of Thailand, and the Java Sea. This vast shallow trough, with depths ranging from 130 feet at its edges to 330 feet in its central region, features a network of submerged river valleys that converge into the Sunda Depression, which ultimately connects to the China Sea Basin. One of the most fascinating aspects of the South China Sea is its geological history, which has been shaped by volcanic activity and tectonic shifts. The seabed is covered with sediments deposited by rivers like the Mekong and Red, which form mud layers characteristic of the inner zones of the continental shelf. In contrast, the deeper regions are primarily made up of clay sediments. The South China Sea is a biodiversity hotspot, with its unique physical features supporting a rich array of marine life. Its complex system of shoals, reefs, and deep basins provides habitats for a wide range of species, from coral and fish to larger marine mammals. The reefs, particularly around the Paracel and Spratly Islands, are teeming with diverse species of corals and serve as crucial breeding grounds for fish. These ecosystems are not only biologically important, but also vital to the livelihoods of millions of people in surrounding nations who depend on fishing as a primary source of income. While the South China Sea's geographical features are fascinating, its geopolitical significance cannot be overlooked. The sea serves as a crucial maritime route, with over a third of global shipping passing through its waters. The region is also rich in natural resources, including fisheries and potential oil and gas reserves, making it a hotbed for territorial disputes. Several nations, including China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei, lay claim to overlapping areas within the sea. These disputes, coupled with the region's strategic importance, have made the South China Sea one of the most contested bodies of water globally. In recent months, the United States, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines have intensified joint military patrols and exercises in the South China Sea. These drills are part of a larger effort to maintain stability and deter aggressive actions in the region, particularly in response to China's growing assertiveness. A one-day maritime exercise involving these four nations was recently conducted, with a strong focus on supporting a free and open Indo-Pacific. The South China Sea is a hotbed of territorial disputes, with China claiming nearly 90% of the waters, a claim that was rejected by the 2016 South China Sea Tribunal. Despite the ruling that China's claims hold no legal basis, Beijing has continued its activities in the region, leading to increased tension among neighboring countries. This latest exercise is a direct response to China's actions, as the participating nations seek to reinforce their commitment to freedom of navigation and the rule of international law. The drills involved warships such as the USS Mobile from the United States, Australia's HMS Wallaroo, Japan's JS Akono, and 2 Philippine vessels. The joint exercises covered various operational activities, including submarine warfare training and communication drills within Manila's exclusive economic zone. These exercises underscore the importance of improving interoperability between the nation's armed forces, ensuring they can work together seamlessly in the event of a crisis. While the joint drills did not specifically mention China, the context is clear. The 4 countries reaffirmed their belief that the 2016 tribunal ruling must be upheld. China's sweeping claims over the South China Sea are a significant point of contention, and the participation of the United States and its allies demonstrates their shared goal of ensuring that these waters remain open for all. In response to these exercises, China conducted its own air and sea patrols in the contested waters, though its statement did not directly address the US-led activities. China emphasized that it will continue to protect its claims and ensure stability, despite ongoing opposition from other claimants, including the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, Taiwan, and Vietnam. The recent encounter between Chinese Coast Guard ships and Filipino vessels near the Spratly Islands further illustrates the growing friction in the area. Manila has accused Beijing of harassing its fishermen, while China asserts it was responding to what it views as illegal activity by the Philippines. Against this backdrop of increasing tensions, the trilateral security dialogue among Australia, the UK, and the US, known as AUKUS, has gained momentum. Discussions are now underway to expand the alliance to include Japan, to counter China's influence in the region. Talks on the expansion of AUKUS Pillar 2, which focuses on cutting-edge technologies like quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and cyber warfare, are particularly significant. However, there are no current plans to extend the alliance's Pillar 1, which is focused on delivering nuclear-powered submarines to Australia. This latest round of joint exercises and security talks highlights the delicate balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region. As the US and its allies work to strengthen ties and safeguard their interests, the South China Sea will likely remain a key flashpoint in global geopolitics. On April 10, 2023, tensions between the United States and China escalated dramatically during a naval confrontation in the South China Sea. The USS Milius, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, was conducting a freedom of navigation operation near Mischief Reef, part of the contested Spratly Islands. This operation involved the U.S. warship sailing within 12 nautical miles of the Chinese-controlled reef, a move that drew a sharp rebuke from Beijing. Chinese officials denounced the U.S. actions as illegal and a violation of its sovereignty, further straining the already delicate diplomatic relations between the two superpowers. The incident occurred amidst a backdrop of heightened military activities in the region, particularly with China staging war games around Taiwan. The U.S. 7th Fleet emphasized that the USS Milius was engaged in normal operations near Mischief Reef, asserting that, under customary international law, features like the reef, submerged at high tide in their natural state, are not entitled to a territorial sea, regardless of any land reclamation efforts made by China. In response, China's People's Liberation Army, PLA, issued a strong condemnation of the U.S. operation. A statement from the PLA's Southern Theater Command claimed that the USS Milius had entered Chinese waters without approval, and that PLA forces had closely monitored and warned the vessel. They reiterated China's indisputable sovereignty over Mischief Reef and the surrounding maritime areas, a claim that is consistently challenged by the U.S. and its allies. The confrontation at Mischief Reef was not an isolated incident. Similar tensions had previously arisen near the Paracel Islands, highlighting the ongoing confrontations in a region that is critical to global trade. The South China Sea is not only a vital waterway through which trillions of dollars in trade pass annually, but it is also rich in natural resources, including oil and natural gas reserves. The overlapping territorial claims in these waters have made it a significant flashpoint in the increasingly complex relationship between the world's two largest economies and military powers. For the U.S., the operation of the USS Milius was a carefully planned move to challenge China's territorial claims and assert the rights of all nations to navigate freely in international waters. The United States has long maintained that its freedom of navigation operations are essential to uphold international law and prevent any one nation from exerting undue control over global shipping routes. The U.S. views these operations as a demonstration of its commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, ensuring that trade routes remain accessible to all. Conversely, China perceives the U.S. operations as a direct challenge to its sovereignty. Beijing has consistently maintained that it has indisputable sovereignty over the islands and waters of the South China Sea. To reinforce its claims, China has invested heavily in military modernization and the construction of artificial islands on features like Mischief Reef, where it has built an airfield, radar facilities, and other military infrastructure. These actions have drawn criticism from the international community, which views them as violations of China's commitments under the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. This declaration emphasizes the need to resolve disputes peacefully and avoid unilateral actions that could escalate tensions. Mischief Reef, in particular, has become a focal point of these rising tensions. Once a submerged reef, it has been transformed into a military outpost that supports China's broader strategy in the region. The artificial island has become a key component of China's maritime capabilities, allowing it to project power and monitor naval movements in the South China Sea. This transformation of natural features into military installations has alarmed neighboring countries and has led to a concerted effort by the U.S. and its allies to counteract China's growing influence. The ongoing confrontation in the South China Sea reflects broader geopolitical trends. As the U.S. continues to assert its presence in the region through joint military exercises with allies such as Japan, Australia, and the Philippines, the risks of miscalculation and confrontation increase. Recent joint military exercises among these countries have highlighted their commitment to ensuring stability and freedom of navigation in the face of China's assertive claims. These exercises serve multiple purposes. They reinforce alliances, enhance interoperability among the armed forces of participating nations, and send a clear message to China about the unity of the U.S. and its partners in the region. The risk of further confrontations in the South China Sea is substantial. With multiple countries, namely the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei, claiming parts of the region, the potential for escalation remains high. Recent encounters between Filipino vessels and the Chinese Coast Guard near the Spratly Islands have only underscored the precarious nature of the situation, with Manila accusing Beijing of harassment while China claims it is responding to illegal activities. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the U.S.-China rivalry will undoubtedly shape the dynamics of the South China Sea. The tensions in the South China Sea escalated dramatically recently when the U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, renowned for its advanced surveillance and anti-submarine warfare capabilities, was conducting a routine mission near Hainan Island. This island is not just a strategic location, but also home to a major Chinese submarine base, making it a focal point of military interest for both the U.S. and China. During its mission, the P-8 crew deployed a sonobuoy, an essential tool in anti-submarine warfare. These expendable underwater acoustic sensors are designed to detect and track submarines by listening to the unique sounds generated by their engines, propellers, and other mechanical systems. The deployment of sonobuoys allows naval forces to locate and monitor submarines from a safe distance, significantly enhancing their operational effectiveness and situational awareness. However, the mission took an unexpected turn when a Chinese Coast Guard vessel, displaying an audacity that caught many military observers off guard, managed to recover the deployed sonobuoy shortly after it was released into the water. This incident was not merely a technical setback for the U.S. military. It sent ripples of concern through the Pentagon and highlighted the evolving dynamics of naval engagement in the region. The Chinese authorities quickly seized the opportunity to leverage this incident for propaganda purposes. State media outlets released images and videos of the recovered sonobuoy, framing it as a significant triumph for China's maritime forces and a notable embarrassment for the United States. The portrayal of the incident as a major victory resonated strongly within Chinese media, reinforcing nationalistic sentiments and showcasing China's growing capabilities in maritime operations. Additionally, the Chinese Foreign Ministry wasted no time in lodging a formal diplomatic protest. They accused the United States of violating China's sovereignty and threatening its national security by deploying the sonobuoy in waters they claim as their own near Hainan Island. This statement reflected China's assertive stance in the region, where it views any U.S. military operations as direct challenges to its territorial claims and national interests. The implications of this incident were profound for the U.S. military and its operations in the South China Sea. The successful recovery of the sonobuoy not only raised questions about the effectiveness of U.S. surveillance operations, but also underscored the increasing risks that American forces face as China continues to expand and modernize its military capabilities. The incident highlighted a growing trend where the Chinese military is more willing to engage U.S. operations, challenging American dominance in a region that has become increasingly contested. In the aftermath of the P-8 incident, discussions among U.S. allies have intensified regarding the need for closer military cooperation in the region. Joint military exercises with Japan, Australia, and the Philippines aim to enhance interoperability and deterrence against potential Chinese aggression. These exercises signal a collective commitment among these nations to uphold international law and freedom of navigation, despite the escalating tensions. As the situation evolves, it is clear that incidents like the recovery of the sonobuoy will continue to shape the security environment in the South China Sea. As tensions continue to simmer in the South China Sea, the looming question is what can be done to prevent a crisis from spiraling out of control. This issue not only involves the United States and China, but also a broader network of regional and global actors. The solution is complex, and while the answer is far from simple, there are several steps that both the US and China can take to manage these tensions, build trust, and reduce the risk of conflict. One key priority is enhancing communication and crisis management mechanisms between the two militaries. Given the high stakes in the South China Sea, where any misunderstanding or miscalculation could rapidly escalate, there is a pressing need for direct communication channels. Establishing military hotlines and codes of conduct is one crucial step toward mitigating risks. Such measures would provide real-time communication options during incidents, ensuring that both sides have a means to de-escalate tensions. The US and China have made some progress in this area. For example, in 2014, the two nations agreed on the Code for Unplanned Encounters at Sea, CEUS, a set of guidelines designed to prevent accidents and misunderstandings between military forces operating in the region. However, while this agreement marked a step in the right direction, it remains insufficient. More needs to be done to institutionalize these mechanisms fully and ensure they are operational and reliable during crises. Furthermore, these communication channels must extend beyond mere incident management to include regular dialogues and military-to-military exchanges that build trust and transparency over time. Another critical step is working toward a common understanding of the rules and norms governing behavior in the South China Sea. While the US and China have fundamentally different views on sovereignty and territorial rights, there is still room for dialogue on broader principles such as freedom of navigation, respect for international law, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. The 2016 ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in favor of the Philippines, which invalidated China's expansive claims in the South China Sea, provides a foundation for these discussions, even if China continues to reject the ruling. Building a shared framework for managing competing claims and activities in the region could significantly reduce the risk of conflict. This framework should include protocols for conducting naval and air operations, joint scientific research, and environmental protection efforts. For instance, both nations have a vested interest in maintaining the South China Sea's biodiversity and fisheries, which provide economic and ecological benefits to the region. Cooperation on such issues could serve as a foundation for broader confidence-building measures. Additionally, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, has been working on a code of conduct for the South China Sea, though progress has been slow. The US and China, as major stakeholders, could support ASEAN's efforts by promoting a more robust and binding agreement that sets clear rules for behavior in contested waters. While communication and shared rules can help manage immediate risks, both nations must also address the deeper sources of tension in their relationship. Beyond the South China Sea, the US and China are locked in a broader strategic rivalry, marked by trade disputes, technological competition, and ideological differences. These tensions are exacerbated by nationalistic rhetoric on both sides, which limits the space for compromise and diplomacy. Finding ways to manage these broader challenges is crucial for creating a more stable and predictable environment in which to address specific issues like the South China Sea. For instance, both nations could work toward de-escalating their trade war, collaborating on climate change initiatives, or pursuing arms control agreements in emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and cyber warfare. By addressing these underlying sources of mistrust, the US and China can create a more constructive atmosphere for dialogue and negotiation. The recent confrontations between the US Navy and Chinese military in the South China Sea are just the latest developments in a long history of territorial disputes and strategic competition. The stakes are incredibly high, not just for the nations directly involved, but for the entire world. The South China Sea is one of the busiest shipping lanes globally, and any conflict in this region could have devastating consequences for the global economy. Moreover, an escalation into full-scale conflict could trigger a broader regional war, drawing in other powers like Japan, Australia, and potentially even Russia. In terms of human and economic costs, such a war would be catastrophic. Thousands of lives could be lost, and billions of dollars in trade would be disrupted. The damage to the global order, particularly the principles of international law and the norms governing peaceful dispute resolution, would be profound, setting back prospects for peace and cooperation in the 21st century. Despite these risks, there remains hope for a peaceful resolution. Through diplomacy, compromise, and a shared commitment to managing tensions, the US, China, and other regional actors can coexist and even cooperate in the South China Sea. It will not be easy, and it will require meaningful concessions from all sides. However, the alternative, a dangerous and destabilizing cycle of escalation and confrontation, is simply too costly to contemplate. By prioritizing communication, building trust, and developing shared rules, a path forward can be found to prevent a crisis in the South China Sea. With the world's eyes fixed on the escalating situation in the South China Sea, the responsibility now lies with the leaders in Washington, Beijing, and beyond to navigate a path toward peace. The stakes are high, and the challenge is immense. But what's particularly intriguing is that the US isn't the only key player in this complex maritime drama. Upon assuming office in June 2022, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. took a starkly different approach from his predecessor, Rodrigo Duterte, toward the Philippines' territorial disputes with China. While Duterte had adopted a conciliatory stance, often downplaying maritime tensions in favor of economic cooperation, Marcos sought to take a firmer position on the Philippines' sovereignty, particularly regarding the contentious South China Sea disputes. At the heart of these tensions is the Second Thomas Shoal, part of the Spratly Islands, which lies within the Philippines' 200-mile exclusive economic zone, EEZ. The Philippines refers to this region as the West Philippine Sea. The history of the Second Thomas Shoal dispute dates back to 1999, when the Philippines deliberately grounded the BRP Sierra Madre, a former US Navy ship, on the shoal. This act was intended to reinforce the Philippines' territorial claim to the area. Since then, a small contingent of Philippine Marines has been stationed on the rusting vessel, and the Philippine Coast Guard has conducted monthly resupply missions to support the soldiers aboard. In 2023, tensions between the Philippines and China reached new heights as Chinese Coast Guard vessels began harassing Philippine resupply missions to the BRP Sierra Madre. The Chinese Coast Guard employed increasingly aggressive tactics, including the use of military-grade lasers and water cannons against Philippine ships. Collisions between vessels have become more frequent, highlighting the growing danger in the region. One such incident occurred on June 17, 2023, when a Chinese vessel and a Philippine supply ship collided near the Second Thomas Shoal. Both countries blamed each other for the collision, further escalating tensions. In response to these aggressive actions by China, the Philippines has sought to strengthen its partnerships with other Indo-Pacific neighbors. Under President Marcos, the Philippines has revitalized its defense ties with the United States, Japan, and other regional allies. In a significant move, Marcos has signed several agreements with the U.S. to increase base access, conduct joint military exercises, and facilitate weapons transfers, signaling a renewed commitment to the mutual defense treaty between the two nations. This treaty, which dates back to 1951, obligates the U.S. to defend the Philippines in case of an armed attack. In March 2024, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin reaffirmed that the treaty applies to both nations' armed forces, public vessels, and aircraft operating in the South China Sea. This clarification has been a crucial step in ensuring that the Philippines receives full U.S. support in the face of China's increasing assertiveness. Japan has also stepped up its efforts to assist the Philippines in building its maritime security capacity. Over the past few years, Japan has sold military equipment to both the Philippines and Vietnam, bolstering the defense capabilities of nations that share similar concerns about China's growing influence in the region. These partnerships are part of a broader strategy to strengthen cooperation among Indo-Pacific nations, all of whom share a vested interest in maintaining a free and open South China Sea. As tensions continue to rise in the contested waters, the Philippines' shift in foreign policy under Marcos Jr. reflects a strategic pivot toward international collaboration and military readiness. By deepening ties with traditional allies like the United States and forging new security partnerships with countries like Japan, the Philippines is positioning itself to counter China's aggressive maneuvers in one of the world's most strategically vital regions. How long can these rising tensions in the South China Sea be managed before a confrontation becomes inevitable? Or will diplomacy find a way to steer the region toward lasting peace? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.